Hey there, goblins. Welcome to Goblin Salvage Rights. My name is Robert.
And I'm Erik.
And today we're talking about player options from Rage of Elements.
Rage of Elements players options. Players options, how do you bring them to the table? Would you put all of your players options in like a toolbox and bring it with you?
I put my character sheets in toolboxes, actually.
Yeah, like a literal toolbox, a big red one with the black handle?
Absolutely.
All right, I want to see this next
time.
time.
Minis in there, whole 9 yards.
Pixar didn't happen.
Pixar didn't. I'm going to have to make this
Player
happen now.
options are critically important in this game because if you don't give players fun things to have on their character sheets, then the GM gets very lonely.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, today we basically are going through and exhausting everything we have in the Rage of Elements book. We're going to be doing another follow-up episode of this where we look at DM tools to put in your toolbox.
Yep.
Completely different video. Should be coming out in 1 or 2 weeks after this one. So stay tuned for that. So before we jump into it, do we want to talk about a game we played recently?
Yeah, why don't you go first, and that'll buy me time to think about what I did last time.
So I ran Kingmaker. As usual, the players decided to kind of go for the gold, if you will. They jaunted a couple hexes randomly immediately towards the Stag Lord, which frankly I was not prepared to run. I wasn't expecting them to just move like 3 or 4 hexes and just end up in the Stag Lord's hex, but here we are. So I had to put the brakes on the game for maybe like 10 minutes, and then I read a bunch of pages and I let the players hang out and talk and just do bullshit or whatever. And then I came back and I'm like, all right, guys, let's fucking do this. You know what I mean? And we did. They approached. And then, spoilers, some hands grabbed them from underneath the ground.
Oh, some weird undead necromantic stuff that just kind of like came out of left field. So it made all of us stop and go, wait a minute. What is this new piece of information you're giving us? And is it relevant?
Yeah.
Or can we just ignore it and move on because this is D&D?
Exactly. So I did that, and I was not expecting them to just run away from the problem. But they were like, yep, fuck this. We'll be back in another level.
Yeah, it's funny because you give us a hex map to look at when we make these decisions. And on this hex map are things like hills, mountains, rivers, where the river forks as it's going from high to lowland. So we weren't just picking random hexes to say we want to go here.
Sure, yeah.
We were just sort of like, okay, we found a bandit camp in the woods, and we know another one is somewhere down in like the lake area, but the lake covers like, I don't know, 8 or 9 hexes. Yeah. And there was a super conspicuous like island. And I thought, if I were a bandit lord, that's the one I would fortify. I will be there. Robert's bandit camp is on that hex. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
So apparently we went knocking up on the damn guy's door, and that's when the undead shenanigans happened, and we fucked off pretty quick.
You guys did a really good job hiding. Going at night. We kind of really walked through everything. I don't want to say I was slow rolling it, but I was giving you a lot more time than I normally would have to consider your options so that I could like make time to just quickly prep the rest of this area. Yeah.
I have to be a different kind of player in your game than I would in like a normal Pathfinder game, whatever. And it's because you keep dialing in on this idea of I'm running straight out of the book. This is the book as written. So naturally I've got to think in those terms. So when you say you guys were smart in like moving at night and that sort of thing. Well, we had a dark elf with dark vision.
Exactly.
And we had somebody else who has some kind of like low light, or like half the party has low light vision or dark vision or something like that. And the rest of us are like, why don't you go do the things that require skill at night?
Exactly.
And then we'll be here. You can report back.
Yeah. So, that's pretty much the whole session, honestly.
Yeah.
We also wrapped up a couple loose ends with our Tartusio.
Oh yeah, the gnome that we accidentally killed in a previous session.
Yeah, you guys basically told him to fuck off after he started being a total dick to you.
Yeah, and I still don't know if that's going to bite us in the ass later on, but I'm ready for it at this point. So yeah, it should be interesting. I, for the life of me, can't remember what we did in Edgewatch. Have we played an Edgewatch session since the last video we did?
Yeah, man.
Give me something to roll on. I remember there were a couple of giant statues.
We did a dungeon crawl.
Didn't we already talk about this in a previous video?
I don't believe so.
No? Oh, okay. Well,
we did a giant dungeon crawl.
So in the middle of the city at the center of the world, there's a god that's been dead for a century plus. And there's still catacombs dedicated to him littered throughout the city, and they're underneath. anyhow, we found one of them because there's a bunch of murderous cult-like Norgorberites hiding out down there. And that's kind of where we are. So you guys found the Aradin medallions around the statue. You grabbed 3 of them, and you had your Edgewatch badges that have the Eye of Aradin on there as well, which was good because when you pass through the double bronze doors in the 75 squares long room, big chamber, there's a couple of huge statues. And if you're not showing spoilers, haha, if you're not showing one of those Aradin-like or Aradin affinity objects, then the statues come and clear you out because they just assume that you're tomb robbers.
Totally.
And in this room, it's really cool the way they describe this because there's like brass plaques on the ground. So you stand over them and you read them, you know, in loving memory. These are the 2 people who are buried here. And there's like a 6 foot by 3 foot plot. And it's side by side by side by side going all the way to the end of this massive room.
And then on the walls too, right?
And then on the walls, right. And then so on and so forth. The interesting thing about this is you have cuts in the ceiling, which are actually, I guess, vents to the city above. Gotcha. So you can hear a little bit of the revelry going on in the parades and whatnot upstairs. You can see a bit of starlight, moonlight, you know, festival light kind of poking through. So there's like ambient stuff going on that's sort of like, haha, this is great. It's party time upstairs, but downstairs, this is deadly business. We've got monsters. And there was a headless horseman that came trotting in from the other.
This was so fucking rad, dude.
I didn't know you were going to be so positive on this.
I was so hyped for this. So Erik made a show pony sized nightmare with a child riding it who was headless. And the head of the child was rolling alongside. And that was like 3 separate creatures.
It was 3 separate creatures. It was a nightmare who was a pony.
Right.
Pony sized. Like a little Shetland pony, basically.
For like a child.
So that this tiny, squat, little fat pony with red eyes and, you know, smoky mouth coming out and just impatient stamping feet and whatnot. I'm trying really hard not to kill this thing. So I'm gonna keep my arm here for the duration.
Great. You're doing great.
All right. But okay, so I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
And that was a win on that level.
Yeah.
This is an actual named NPC from one of the players' background 10 years ago, before level 1. Back when the player was 10 years old as a child, they encountered this headless horseman kid. And when the head came rolling up after all the spooky stuff happened, she looked at it and went, oh no, oh no, oh no. This is, oh no, I don't know what to do. This is bad. What do I do? And of course, combat was there.
Yeah.
Do you kill the kid?
I mean,
it's already dead.
It's already
undead.
Exactly.
It's a named NPC. It's a personality. Why don't we talk to it first? No, stab it. Wait, what do we do? This isn't D&D anymore. This kid is an ironclad part of that character's story. We can't just roll initiative, can we? Or
we
can
did.
we?
I mean, it started attacking us like immediately, so we totally killed it. Yeah. And the other thing that was really cool is my hobgoblin has the smoke worker like affinity or whatever.
I leaned into that as hard as I could. Yeah. So this nightmare, for those of you who don't know, nightmares breathe noxious smoke out through their mouths, and they create a cloud, and they conceal within that cloud. But you were playing a what did you say? A smoke worker
hobgoblin
heritage of the hobgoblin ancestry. So it was really fun describing to you specifically what was going on, and everybody else just see this swirling vortex of smoke with periodic, red and orange flashing out of it. Meanwhile, there's this child in the middle screaming at everybody. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoy those GM moments where I'm speaking to 4 or 5 players, but I'm really speaking to one player.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm speaking to 4 other players, but really, you guys, I'm speaking to one player. So having that sort of a double conversation, that's the meat and potatoes of my GM experience these days.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sweet. Before we get started, this episode is dedicated to a lovely patron.
D! Are you there, D?
Thank you so much for supporting us. As always, we appreciate it. It's going to buy new equipment to make the show look even better and stuff like that. We're pinching our pennies and saving them. I'm going to try and do a little bit of a makeover for the set coming soon.
And you see new mic stands here. Yeah. So all of this is moving forward slowly but surely.
Absolutely. So thanks again for your patronage. If you guys want to support...
Got a nice little hat here.
Okay. We did not spend money on this, I promise.
My little Eshy hat.
I would not waste money on a prop like that.
No,
actually, I might actually waste money on a prop like that. We should save that for the Druid episode. Yeah. Hey man, so druids, man.
Yep. We'll show up in our flannels, our axes, and we'll have leshy caps.
Oh, the most Oregonian druid episode ever.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe ranger episode.
Okay. All right.
We'll think about it.
We've got the Howls of the Wild coming out in spring of next year, so that's going to be all foresty things.
Sweet. So let's jump right into the topic. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of cool shit in this
Rage
book.
of Elements is still going on, and I know a lot of you guys out there have been theory crafting your builds. You've probably been going over the forums trying to figure out how do I make either a kineticist or a like an elemental instinct barbarian, or how do I use this book to make characters that are juicy and do things for me.
And did you pick anything out of the kineticist section?
I did not.
Okay,
no, I deliberately stayed away from it.
Yeah, I did too. We're working on a deep dive on the kineticist right now.
That's why I left it. Yep.
And frankly, talking about those parts outside of
its own conversation, and it's a big one, so it deserves its own spot.
Sweet. So let's get started from the top, I guess.
I think it would be a good idea to, well, I guess we could just talk about them by element rather than how do we make this list? Because really, we just picked great player options that make our player brains sing.
Exactly.
And hopefully yours too.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll get started.
Sure.
With a gentle breeze.
The element of air.
Page 70. It's a second level spell with a great duration. The spell is super multifaceted. So it's one of these spells that do a lot in one paragraph. They give you a +2 status bonus to medicine checks, which is huge because when you critically succeed with a medicine, you get a bunch ton of HP, and you can try harder and harder checks depending on what your ability is. So being able to get a huge bonus like that is incredible.
Interesting. I'm showing it has both the healing and the vitality tags, and I don't know what a vitality tag is. Is that new, or has that been around a while?
That's one of the new tags that are being introduced in the Pathfinder Remastered.
Interesting, because I can see like necromancy vitality, healing vitality.
This also heals HP. So it gives you a +2 status bonus to doing medicine checks.
Okay.
Or anyone in the aura, because it's an emanation around you.
40-foot burst, I see that.
Yep. And then for a duration is 10 minutes. So basically it gives you +2 status bonus to medicine checks, +2 bonus to resist diseases.
Sure.
Or maybe it's diseases you already have. At the end of the 10 minutes, if you stay in it continuously, it heals 10 HP, as well as a cooling breeze in the area that reduces the temperature. So if you're doing a fight the opponent artificially raises the temperature and creates bad conditions for the players, that gives them debuffs, this will counteract that. Okay. What I love about this is you can take the spell with the assumption that this is just a 10-minute long +2 status bonus to medicine checks. And I've got a super medicine person in my party. So this is Gucci already. And then you get all of these tack on abilities that sweeten the pot. The way I look at balance in a game or power in a game like this is that if a spell does one very specific thing and fixes one very specific problem, it's ranked lower than spells that can do a lot using one spell slot.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially for spontaneous casters. Now, this doesn't matter as much, especially for like a druid or a cleric, because they get all of their spells. So if you run into an issue where you have a very specific problem you need to solve and you know it's going to happen tomorrow, then you can just take the spell tomorrow and solve that hyper-specific problem. But what's more important to me as a player, who's trying to make a character, I like to create a base list of spells I always have, default spells. And then if something specific comes up, I'll pull one out and put in a specific spell.
Do you do that for each character you generate that is a caster, or is that just a Robert thing?
Every character I make has their general list of spells.
Which is identical?
No.
Okay.
It's
so it is character centric. It's not
character
Robert centric.
Yeah.
Because I know there are super effective spells that some players, every single caster they ever put together will have that spell just because it's the bomb spell.
If I get access to Stinking Cloud, I'm taking Stinking Cloud.
Right.
There are some spells that are just winners because they're so versatile and powerful in a lot of different situations.
Sure.
I wouldn't take Gentle Breeze if I didn't have someone doing medicine in the party at the time.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Meta considerations rather than character considerations.
Exactly. Sure. Because I take spells based on the conditions, right?
Okay.
Some of these spells are absolutely useless. Unless given a specific condition. And that's a lot of the reason why I didn't talk about them.
And the GM should be that condition.
Exactly. I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
That's my
cool.
spell. Yeah.
So let's see. This is a player-centric list, not a GM-centric list. So I gotta take my GM hat off and put my player hat on. And I don't play too much these days, so bear with me here. Air spells. It's my opinion that anytime an NPC can be attached to a toolbox item like a spell, an item, armor, weapon, whatever, or it can lean into a genre. It can make me feel like I'm more fully within one of the storytelling genres. Then that's the thing I'm going to pick. That's a no-brainer as a GM, and that's something I try to trend towards as a player. The problem is part of my player brain wants the things that work, the things that are efficacious,
Exactly.
the things that are, quote unquote powerful. But I try to shut that part of my brain off as much as possible and think, what would my gnome artificer do? What would my orc baker do? I try to make character-centric builds, so the optimal stuff tends to go away a lot. I guess the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I notice almost the entirety of my list are react spells, or reaction-based.
You fell in love with reactions just out of nowhere.
Yeah, I didn't realize having a spell as a reaction, and I'm not talking about focus spells here, because focus spells are erroneously named. They should be more like abilities, but like actual arcane, primal, divine, occult spells that you can cast, there's only like a very small handful in the core book. I didn't go back to the APG to see how many there are, but in Secrets of Magic, there's maybe 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they seem to be limited to illusions and divine casters. That makes total sense for divine casters. All that aside, my air spell that I picked, I've got Blast Back and Propulsive Breeze. Blast Back literally says when you hit the ground from more than 10 feet up, instead of taking falling damage, you do the cheesy superhero thing and you punch the ground and a shockwave erupts and does whatever damage to anybody around you. It's a really cool here I am maneuver.
Absolutely.
And I imagine that would get really trite after the third time I do it in a game.
But here's the thing. If you're commonly preparing a spell like that, you as a player and as a character are looking for opportunities to
just looking for buildings to jump off of every time.
Literally. So
it's like everybody roll initiative. Wait, can I get on top of that building first?
Exactly. It's like, all right, we're going to sneak up on the bad guy. Okay. Is there like a tree above him? Yeah, there is. Okay, I'm going to sneak up and climb up the tree.
Where's our parkour goblin?
Exactly. And then later on, when you get fly or jumping abilities, you get fly up there and then superhero landing.
Yeah, and how many video games have we played where you can do exactly that?
Absolutely.
But the thing I really like is Propulsive Breeze, Deadpool. And here's why. So typically when you get a reaction, and that reaction that you get, that you put your character building resources into, benefits another player and not you, typically that's the purview of the champion, right? And other divine casters from time to time, but typically champion. They get the reacts to help your brethren. But Propulsive Breeze is an air manipulate move. These are the 3 tags. It's a 2nd level spell, arcane, primal. The trigger is an ally within range, which is 60 feet, strides or leaps. That's all somebody in your party has to do. And it's not even your party. It could be an NPC. If somebody strides or leaps, that triggers this 2nd level spell. And what it does is it lets you leverage the element of air to give them extra movement onto their stride or leap. So you can help somebody clear a chasm. You can help somebody run across a bridge that's falling down. Or if you're running through a burning building and bits of the floor starts to come out. There are so many cinematic ways that you can leverage the spell that doesn't help you. It helps your buddy.
I'm really disappointed, actually, that they didn't call this Tailwind. Because that's like the perfect
That's money
name
on the
for
table
it.
right there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Propulsive Breeze, it's an arcane primal thing that doesn't help you. When I think of wizard builds, I think of Fireball, Magic Missile. I think of mind domination things. I think of illusions to trick people's minds. It's 1v1 or 1v many.
Battlefield manipulation.
Sure. But there are so many reactive spells in Rage of Elements across all of the elements. All the elements have it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you can... This already is a game where you don't silo build your characters. You build according to party needs. And having arcane casters that can also help you help other people achieve their maximum builds, that's really cool. And I have not seen that in any of the books prior to this.
Absolutely.
It exists in very tiny examples, but nothing like we've seen here. So to me, that feels like design space that has been recognized in previous books, but they finally devoted resources to. So when we talk about relics and how we wish they devote more resources to relics because it's just really cool, put them in more books, please, and certain other things. They're finally starting to do that. React spells for arcane casters is one of them now.
So to tailwind off of that, or to dovetail
Propulsive
off of that, okay, the Propulsive Breeze off of that. One of the biggest pieces of advice I give players for building their characters is to find a reaction that you can get as an ability as soon as possible.
Sure.
Because in the game of Pathfinder, it is a game of action economy.
Yep.
And if you can deny your opponent's action economy while getting more for yourself, you're winning.
Yep.
Because death is literally just permanent -3 actions every turn, right? So if you can give yourself one more action per turn. I love how you've never heard me say this before. This is like my whole philosophy.
Death is just -3 actions.
Death is just -3 actions. It really is. Like, I have a whole philosophy of player optimization that I've been writing slowly in one of my Notion pages. And that's like a big part of it. It's like denying your opponent's actions.
Sure.
Death is just permanently denying them 3 actions.
I feel like I need to work that into my resume somehow.
And reactions are a 4th action that a lot of people don't have access to.
Right.
They're always triggered. They're always circumstantial. So the more powerful a reaction is, the more general its trigger is.
Yeah.
So the champion's reaction is like a really good.
And by definition, they're things that you don't have to prepare for. You're reacting to things other people do. So it's not occupying any more of your brain space as a player. Whereas in the old days, the wizards, you kind of had to customize at the beginning of the day for whatever actions you wanted to do that day.
Absolutely.
But with reacts, you just sort of have them when you need them. And that's a cool bit of design, I think, that I'm really glad it's spreading beyond the champion.
I am too, because I mean, there are a lot of classes that have access to reactions.
Through focus spells.
Not just through focus spells. No, almost every martial class has many actions that are reactions.
Okay.
And a lot of times they come at level 2 and level 4 and level 6.
Sure. Yeah.
So especially the famous one is Attack of Opportunity, or Reactive Strike is what we're turning it into. The nomenclature is changing because of Orc. And Reactive Strike is the famous one. Is the famous one you get at 6th level.
Sure.
Every marshal gets almost every marshal, caveats, gets access to it at 6th level.
Right. And you're talking about marshals, and most of the conversation we've had up until
is
now
about casters. Exactly. Casters, as you probably what you meant, have very limited access to reactions. And that's why this is so cool.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is like shiny new lever syndrome for me or something like that, but I'm seeing it everywhere in this book and I want more of it.
Exactly.
Like, I want to build a caster that is as exclusively as they can be a reactionary caster. How cool would that be? Just like a no wizard.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Actually,
don't know how it would work, but we can theory craft it. If you can theory craft one, put it down below.
Absolutely.
I want to see it.
I do too, because I'm probably going to make one myself now, because I love that idea. I love wacky ideas like that. If you consider, I know we're not supposed to talk about the kineticist, but if you consider the kineticist a caster fundamentally, which I think you should, it is fundamentally a caster.
Sure.
It's a caster who casts focus spells.
Sure. Yeah.
That don't cost focus points. That's the whole class.
Yep.
Every one of the elements gets access to really powerful reactions.
Yes.
And I think what happened when they were writing this book was they wrote the kineticist and they're like, oh, these reaction spells things aren't that bad, actually. We should probably put a couple more for the regular
We should
casters.
stop calling them all focus spells and just put them in the regular spells.
Yes, we should give them to the plebeians, the other casters. Yes.
The plebe wizards.
So to jump into my next item here, we're going to be talking about Jaathoom's Scarf.
And that would be the element of earth?
Air. We're still in air.
Oh, we're still in air.
Jaathoom's Scarf.
Wow, I just did one air. You did more than one?
I just picked
Air's
stuff.
popular.
I just picked stuff. I got a lot more than Erik.
I did 5 per, but I know you guys don't want a 3-hour video.
Yeah, page 75, Jaathoom's Scarf, item level 10. It's 900 GP. This thing is, given the caveat, this is an excellent item for a buff bard looking for versatility. The only caveat here is that their performance has to be in dance. That's the only caveat. It says so in the book. But if you do that, you get a +2 item bonus to checks to perform, which is on its own really good. I wanted to double check, but I didn't have time to see what the typical level is to get a +2 item.
Okay.
I'm going to guess, considering all the abilities that come with this, that you can get a +2 to a skill a little bit earlier than 10th level, or 10th level. But all the other stuff that comes with it is totally worth getting this item anyway. So you get a +2 item bonus to performance checks and acrobatics checks to escape. Escaping,
that's awesome,
is awesome. Like whenever you can get a bonus to it, that's great. +2 item bonus, important tag there. Also very powerful.
Nobody likes being grappled or bound.
Exactly. And item bonus is stacked with status bonuses and circumstance bonuses. That's why they're very sought after. And then you get a once per day 4th level invisibility spell. And then...
But wait, there's more.
Once per hour, you get an AoE pushback. Now, it only has like a DC 18 to the pushback ability, but it's only one action. So oftentimes, if you're playing a hard buff caster like the Bard, you want to keep things as far away from you as possible. A lot of your spells will be built around giving you options to escape situations so that you can live to dance another day, right? That's how I've always traditionally built a lot of my casters that are heavy focus on supporting the battlefield. You always need that dimension door. You always need that fly spell and that invisibility spell. This allows you to not have that second level third level invisibility second level. Anyway, it allows you to not put that on your character sheet, and that saves you a new slot for something more interesting or more versatile. So this is it's just the perfect little bundle of bonuses for a Bard. And obviously it can be used for pretty much any other like caster, I guess. I guess Swashbuckler who focuses on performance could also really use this pretty well. But I don't know if dance and battle dancing are the same thing. I'd have to double check that. But when I read this, the Bard came first and foremost to my mind.
Yeah, I have a question about this. So I'm seeing in all of these items, there's a bold term called usage, and it tells you how you wear the thing.
Yes.
Some of it say worn cloak, held in one hand. For Jaathoom's scarf, it says worn belt.
Yeah.
It's a scarf that you wear around your waist. Why does that matter? Can't you just like bandana it up? Or is there a reason why it's a belt?
So as I understand the way the game is played, now this isn't something I consider myself an expert in. I'm only trained in magical items, because we don't actually focus a lot on magical items and buying stuff in a lot of our games. It's a lot of times
we hand-wave a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. So
are these slots? You can only have one belt,
right.
2 hands.
So what I understand is there aren't traditional slots like previous games, but you can only have a certain number of items that you're attuned to, like 10. Right. I guess if you want to wear multiple belts, you could, but maybe in the new book, they're moving in a direction for magical items where there are slots again. Okay. I don't know.
I'm just wondering why this can't be like Jaathoom's shoelaces.
Yeah, I'm sure if you wanted
maybe they just pick something and slap it in.
Yeah. And I'm sure if you wanted to wear the scarf around your neck, or
that's
like
kind of the first image I had after headband.
That should be really cool. Or a headband. Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Man panties.
Anything. Yep. You know, the world is your oyster.
Jaathoom's diaper.
The world is your
Don't
scarf.
say burrito when we just got done with the diaper analogy.
Okay. Oh, and they have a beautiful picture of it too, which is really cool.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So what's yours? What's your next one?
I'm ready to move on to the element of Earth. I don't have another.
Me too.
Air. So Earth. Why don't I start this on page 95? It's so hard doing this list from a player's perspective because my GM brain keeps trying to jump in and talk, and I have to shut it up because I have different criteria depending on what side of the screen I'm on. Interposing Earth, page 95. There's something really satisfying to me about a reaction spell. It's a first level reaction spell.
I almost picked this one too, by the way. This is really cool.
Earth trait, manipulate trait, nothing super sexy there. Arcane primal traditions. The trigger, you are the target of a strike or would attempt a reflex save against a damaging area effect.
It's
duration 3 rounds.
Level 1 spell.
Level 1 spell.
Yeah.
Super easy, low threshold to clear. You grab Earth, you pull it up. And what does it do? It's a barrier 1 inch thick, 5 feet long, 5 feet high. You put it on the border between 2 squares on your grid. It's between you and the sword. You basically pull, you make a shield out of the Earth. and it absorbs the impact.
It almost kind of reminds me of like pulling up like a shutter curtain or something like that. You know what I mean? Like a reverse window curtain or something just from the ground.
Yeah, I picture sort of Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four, just like, pulling up a shield of fire, and Thing kind of looks at him, says, "Hold my beer," and rips the earth out of the ground and pulls it up.
Yeah, but, so it would be two people next to each other, and then there's a line.
I had a hard time with the earth selections. Yeah. None of it was singing to me, either as a player or as a GM.
Some really good things in here.
There's some great numerical things in here. There are some. The needle moves mechanically with all of these options, but they're just not fun to think about or to do. And my GM brain is like, how can I do that in an interesting way that isn't just another same old, tremor signs, sliding blocks, rubble step. Let's talk about difficult terrain, making it, clearing it. It's the same stuff dressed up in earth form now. We've already had these before, so many of these. I personally had a difficult time with it. I did enjoy the Toil Domain a little bit. The idea of being a divine caster, and instead of getting your inspiration and some of your power from like a deity splattered all over gods and magic, it's one of the elemental lords.
Yeah, absolutely.
That teased my brain a bit.
They are deities.
They are technically deities.
They all have pantheons and stuff like that you can follow.
And they do grant spells and all that.
How cool would it be to be a champion of the bad of Azrael?
Yeah,
that
for sure.
Would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's right up there with a Paladin of Gorm or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I had trouble with Earth. I enjoy it as a thought exercise, but none of the actual mechanical options sang to me as a player.
Gotcha.
When we get to the DM video on this, I'm going to be singing a different tune.
Yeah. Do you have more options for Earth? Because if so, let me do one.
Not as a player, no.
Okay, cool. No. So, real quick shout out to Tremorsense.
Mm-hmm.
Love me some good Tremorsense.
Yeah.
They finally added it as a spell.
Mm-hmm.
It is exactly what it sounds like.
Arcane, Divine, Occult, Primal.
Level 2.
Everybody gets it.
Except for it's not Occult. Arcane, Occult, Primal.
It's all four traditions.
It's not divine. Yeah. Arcane, Occult, Primal.
You said tremor signs, right?
Tremorsense.
Oh, sense.
Oh, Tremorsense, not tremor signs.
Okay.
I can see.
Sorry.
Yeah, totally.
My bad.
So Tremorsense, it is literally what it looks like on the tin.
Mm-hmm.
You gain Tremorsense.
Yep.
Second level spell, 2 actions, 10-minute duration. At third level, you can heighten it up to 1 hour. Yep. At fifth level, you can heighten it up to 8 hours. That's it. That's the spell. I love it. All right, moving on.
Yeah, that's cool. One of my favorite movies growing up was Tremors.
Me too. Yeah,
I got a goddamn plan.
So right at the top of the spells selection is Cave Fangs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, generally speaking, when an entry is this short, I kind of gloss over it a lot of times. But this is just a very simple but solid package. Third level spell, 2 actions to cast, Arcane and Primal. Concentrate Earth and Manipulate traits. Defense, it's got a range of 60 feet, an area of a 20-foot burst. Duration is 1 minute. Basic reflex save. You deal 66 piercing damage in a 20-foot burst, 60 feet away from you. Okay?
And it lasts for a minute.
No need to concentrate. What's important here is
Fangs concentrate.
There's no sustain. Sorry, there's no sustain. You have to sustain it. That's what I meant. You do have to concentrate, but you don't have to sustain it. So it just lasts for a minute, and then it creates difficult terrain.
Yeah, that's
dude. So like 40 feet, that's a 20-foot radius burst is 40 feet of difficult terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine you've created a funnel of some sort between you and an opponent. 2 options immediately spring to mind. Either you have an opponent right next to you, and your marshal is wailing on them,
mm-hmm.
and you don't want them to run away, or you want to reduce their retreat. You put the pie plate so that they're on the edge, and there's a bunch of difficult terrain behind them that they have to run through. Or the opposite. You've got a scary big baddie over there, and he's gonna come and charge. He's gonna come and charge my guy. You know what I mean? So what do? I put him right at the edge of the pie plate here, so he gets nicked by the 66 damage, and then he has to waste 80 feet of movement if he wants to move in a direct line towards me.
Mm-hmm.
That is powerful.
Yeah, I think this is part of what I'm talking about. Like there are a lot of tactically sound options for players to choose, and that's fantastic. That's the board game side of this particular hobby. I guess my question is that specific spell, do you think you'd be able to inform your character's background using the information out of that spell? I don't have a yes or no for that. I'm just posing the question as a thought exercise
Yeah.
because when we're choosing spells for our characters have backgrounds before they can cast spells.
Totally.
Like, how do these choices inform who we are as a character? So when we go into our RP moments, they just feel more authentic. And
it
for something
has
like
the
this,
Earth tag.
That's about as far as I got myself.
So like they could have an Earth
being
focus?
able to summon an Earth genie. Oh, I can just background the shit out of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tremorsense. Okay. I mean, something about giant worms.
Tremorsense is utilitarian. They could just be a utilitarian.
Sure.
And they discovered this ability. It has nothing to do with their backstory, but it's like, okay, this is useful. Maybe in the previous sessions, they got harmed by some invisible creatures, and now they've sworn to never get stabbed in the back again. So they cast Tremorsense every day.
I'm good with that because you just link the background of a character to the selection of a spell. And that's the kind of stuff I mean when I say, can I link an NPC to this choice? Or can I?
So where my mind goes for Dregrid, the wizard I play in your game, is he's a wizard from Oprok, a nation who has a very close relationship with earth elementals and manipulating the earth itself to do its bidding.
Yeah, this book should redesign a lot of Dregrid's spell choices.
Oh, it's going to. I got a couple bangers that Dregrid's gonna.
I got to work on my radiation game.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be nuts. Yeah. So Fangs is my spell. The other spell I chose.
Sexy name too. I like that name.
Right before we get out of the spell section, I want to talk about the Toil Domain real quick.
Sure.
Toil Domain's first focus spell, Practice Makes Perfect on page 97. It is a reaction focus spell. Level 1, Domain Toil. Trigger, you or an ally within range fails a skill check for a skill in which you or they are trained. Range is 30 feet. Targets are a triggering creature. They get a +2 status bonus to the triggering attack, or a +3 if they're a master proficiency or better. And this bonus can change the outcome of a roll. Status bonuses are the most widely available bonuses to get from a magical source. However, you don't always have them. And if you have someone in your party who's very skill focused, let's say a swashbuckler or a rogue or any of these martial classes, especially that gain power and abilities from dealing debuffs via social skills, or maybe a medicine check. You can use this on a medicine check. So there's plenty of places where you can deploy this all the time.
Sure.
Remember when I said earlier how reactions value is predicated on how often it can be triggered often? That this is incredibly powerful given those circumstances, given those criteria, and the +2 status bonus. Listen, people, the best bonus you could ever get in the entirety of the game is +4, okay? Very few things give you more than a +4 to something. Armor, of course, does because it plays by a different system of rules in the beginning. But like +4 status, +2 status bonus is freaking powerful. And then +3 with only master, you get mastered at 7th level. That's wild.
Robert's very excited right now.
That's wild. The bad news is Tireless Worker, their 4th level focus spell, is very mediocre. Yeah. The good news is, though, in order to get that focus spell, you have to spend a feat. So just don't spend a feat and pick something else.
Sure.
So that's the Toil Domain. The first level focus spell, Practice Makes Perfect, is excellent.
Yeah, it's also uncommon. So it's not like every player can just assume they're going to take this.
Absolutely.
Have a conversation with the GM. One quick question. I'm ready to move on. The Toil Domain, is that a new domain or has that been floating around for years?
It's new.
It's new.
New.
Because I feel like the Hringar god should have had that. What did they used to be called? The bad dwarves. Work all the time until you're dead.
The Dwerger?
Yeah, the Durgar. Right. Whatever. I think they're called Hringar now.
Work all the time until you're dead.
Their deity is that.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if like they're going to change in the remaster, if they're going to give them the toil and take something out.
That'd be cool.
Okay.
That'd be cool.
Moving on. Are you done with Earth or do you have items?
Yeah, I'm on to fire.
Ooh, fire. Fire's sexy. You start and I'll catch up.
I don't have Earth items? Wait a minute. Toil Domain. Did they just get squished together?
Earth items?
No, I guess I didn't pick an Earth item. That's okay.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking maybe Limestone Shield, but then I looked at other shields and it's not that great. It also has a bulk of 4, which is like fucking yikes.
Oh, the Vault Builders. Moving on.
Yeah. So going to fire. Do you have an option, or do you want me to go again?
I do.
Sure,
I just got to find the page because I didn't write the page number down.
Yeah, I'm a smart boy. I picked things. So this is when we begin to pick things that we already talked about in a previous episode.
I tried so hard not to do that, but what was yours?
I did it. I picked Cinder Swarm.
Yeah.
It's too good.
It's good.
So again, going back to that versatility in a spell, especially for casters that are prepared, that are not prepared, that are spontaneous casters. For spontaneous casters, having versatile spells is a lifesaver because your very limited number of spells can do multiple things. That's why summoning spells are so powerful, especially for spontaneous casters. So Cinder Swarm, level 4 spell. Also, I try not to pick a lot of spells that are super high level. I wanted to pick spells that most players will end up using during their game. I mean, we can all gawk at how powerful a 9th level or an 8th level or 7th level spell is. But at the end of the day, most of us are never going to be able to use it. So I'd rather not waste breath talking about it here on the podcast.
Sure.
Kind of waste everyone's time. So getting back to the Cinder Swarm, level 4 spell, 2 actions, Arcane Primal. Range 60 feet, targets 1 creature. Fortitude or basic reflex saving throw, depending on the modality, it's sustained up to 1 minute. Now, this allows you to do some really consistent fire damage, as well apply debuffs like forced movement or blinded and dazzled conditions on top of fire damage. This is just so versatile because on one hand, you can pick the A modality, the fire ants modality, and force people, literally deal damage and force people around because they get bitten by ants and they have to jump away. Or you pick the fireflies modality, which reminded me a lot of fairy fire, or fairy dust or whatever the spell is, but in like an angry firefly swarm version. They also have a beautiful piece of artwork on the next page, on page 120, showing the iconic druid casting the spell, which is so fucking cool. I absolutely love this art style. It's so
that's a little different, isn't it? That's a different artist than I'm used to.
The contrast on it is awesome with the blue background and the red bugs, and then we've got their face. It's just there's so much contrast and lighting on top of contrasting color. Yeah. I don't know.
And
I fell
in
love.
Ugly. It's like good ugly.
Exactly. It's mean ugly. Yeah. It's fierce ugly, and that's what I love seeing in my characters. Yeah.
Can I talk about eating fire?
Absolutely.
Okay, because Dragrid's going to want this. Yeah. So, eat fire. It's surprise, a reaction spell, but it's reaction cantrip. So, cantrips, you just keep casting till the, cows come home. In this case, it's response to something. So, it's a cantrip, fire, manipulate, traditions, arcane, occult, primal. Trigger, when you would take fire damage. This thing triggers. It's a cantrip. So, you can keep triggering it. Blah, blah, blah. Duration till the end of your next turn. Essentially, you consume and ingest fire, making it less harmful for you. You get a resistance 5. If something is trying to deal fire damage to you, this thing kicks in.
Yeah.
And it helps you. And you suck it in. And you can take an action as a result of this to belch out smoke, creating essentially a smoky bank that you can hide inside of. Everything outside of you, I believe, is concealed to you, and vice versa. It would be great for your smoke worker hobgoblin. You can see out, nobody else can see him, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
But the thing that really gets me about this is it's a cantrip. You're not expending resources to do this. You don't have to use this in combat. You can light a torch and stick it to your chest and this thing triggers.
Yes.
You don't need an enemy to trigger this reaction spell.
Exactly.
You can trigger your own reaction spell. Name one other thing that does that in this game.
I just double checked, and this is only for the arcane spell list. So I could be wrong, but I think this might be the only reaction cantrip in the game besides Elemental Counter, which is also introduced in this book. And Elemental Counter is like hyper niche and specific.
Yeah.
So that's pretty special. I mean, that's really special.
It's cool. And it heightens at +3. The resisting increases by 5.
Absolutely.
So you just,
Can you imagine a baker?
Yeah.
I've always thought it would be cool to do a
pizza oven.
Like imagine a book of magical items NPCs use. Like a baker would love a ring of fire resistance 5. It would be super expensive, but like the super bougie chef or baker out there. You know, I used to work in kitchens all the time, and I would have loved to have fire resistance 5, so I could just stick my hands in an oven and pull shit out and put it down.
Sure, yeah,
exactly. So a lowly level baker could use this element. This
totally, and I don't see any reason under the sun why you can't repurpose this for any other element out there.
Sure.
So like for ice, just make it all ice. You do resistance 5, ice damage. And you can belch out steam that conceals.
Totally.
This doesn't have to stay in fire, and it's a cantrip that reacts. That doesn't require an enemy to trigger it. It's cool. So I'm done gushing over Eat Fire, and I only have the one for fire. So what do you got?
So getting back to
when we get to the GM video, I'm gonna have a lot more to say. So I'm just doing one per player.
That's totally fine. That's really fine. Going back to the items, I have Ymeri's Mark. No, this is a spell. Sorry. Ymeri's Mark, 4th level spell, page 121. This thing gets off with a failure or a critical failure. It can seriously change the trajectory of a campaign.
Yeah.
So effectively what you do is you cast a will saving throw against an opponent. They get a flaming emblem mark.
Monsters love will saves.
And that's true. And when that creature fails, depending on the level of failure that they have, the mark lasts a certain amount of time. This mark allows you to track them across the entire plane of existence. You always know their direction, which is wild, especially if you're playing in a detective game or if you're playing with a DM who loves making his BBEGs run away.
Why are you doing weird things with your voice, Robert?
At the last minute. You also can make the rune explode for lol damage. Sure, it's 5d6 or something like that, which is not a lot for a 4th level spell, but that's not the point. That's icing on the cake. If they succeed against the check, the rune lasts for a minute. Okay, critical success does nothing like usual. If they fail, it lasts for a week, and if they critically fail, it is permanent. The duration is unlimited.
I just noticed in fine print at the bottom of the spell it says not allowed in Erik's game.
Oh fuck! So I totally missed that. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Sorry, man. Them's the breaks.
I'm gonna have to learn a new mark from a different god of
Goblin
fire
rules
there. Yeah. So yeah, this is just like if you're playing in that kind of game where your DM loves to whisk the bad guy away or whatever, having this in your quiver is very powerful. And
it's not even uncommon.
Of course, you should let your DM know about the tools and abilities you can do. Sure. You shouldn't surprise them. But it would actually make a really cool twist of fate where maybe the party is, this is a 4th level spell, so you get this at 9th level, right?
Yeah.
Which means like, imagine the party has been going through this kind of scenario time after time where they keep having someone run away from them. Everyone just keeps slipping out of their fingers. And you know what? Finally, the wizard or the sorcerer says, I've had enough of these pieces of shit running away from me. And they go and they study and they discover this mark created, this spell created by the god of fire to always hunt their prey. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get him next time.
This is going to be one of those spells I'm going to talk about when we get to the GM's toolbox, because you build scenes around spells like this. This isn't a spell that's like, this is a tactically superior spell, so I'm going to have it on all my characters because it's a tactically superior spell. No, you build entire scenes, you build entire adventures around something like this.
The BBEG knows, because they're good at spellcrafting, that you've done this to them, and they use it to lure you into a trap. Like, how fucking cool is that?
I'm seeing some tags I'm not used to seeing, and I'm sure they've existed before. Like the curse tag. I'm sure that's been around a while.
Yeah, it's been around.
Okay, that makes sense. The detection tag, is that?
I've never really looked into it, but I can look into it on Archives of Nothies.
Yeah, maybe off screen. I'm cool with that. I feel like with the murderizing of the alignment system, we're readjusting some of our tags to sort of bring that design into spells and items and whatnot that way. And I'm wondering what other parts of the Pathfinder 2nd edition is getting absorbed into these tags. So if they do exist, tell me where they are, and I'd like to know. So I don't know how to Google that.
I'll do it for you.
Cool.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about your next thing, Erik?
So that was Ymeri's Mark. That's a solid one that's coming back on the GM episode. And I am ready to move on to metal unless you have more fire shit to talk about.
I do have more fire shit to talk about.
All right, then why don't you do that?
The Ash Gown. It has an incredible piece of artwork here.
That's an item?
It's an item, Ash Gown. The picture's on page 125. The item is on page 122. Let's talk about the Ash Gown.
There you are.
It's rad. So you get a +1 item bonus to intimidation checks. That's pretty cool. Grants you a resistance 5 to fire damage. And then it gives you a very interesting ability. It allows you to use 2 actions, manipulate frequency once per day, to stride and then strike. The movement that you leave behind, anyone you pass by, takes 2d6 fire damage with a DC 23 basic reflex save. So this screams, like to me when I read this screams swashbuckler. I can totally, because swashbucklers are all about movement and striking and like combining those two things together.
Why did I go to Magus first? You're right, swashbuckler for sure. Yeah.
So the reason I went to swashbuckler is because there is a swashbuckler subclass that focuses on doing intimidate checks. And this gives you a bunch of intimidation.
Yeah.
You can also...
3 musketeers in a dress.
Exactly. This can also be used on a rogue who focuses on intimidation checks as part of their class. I'm sure the goblins out there can think of other combos.
Charisma, movement, and magic.
Exactly. Charisma, movement, and striking. It is the perfect combination. And it comes with like freaking great art. I wish every item in the game came with art. I really do.
I think they do now in the cards. They make there's potions and talismans card deck where there's specific art for each of them.
That is badass.
They have it for weapons, armor. They have it for talismans. They have it.
It's a dream come true.
Potions and all that alchemical crap.
So that's a great item for all the movement-oriented intimidation-focused classes out there. Another great item, and then we can pop over to metal, is Scalding Gauntlets. Again, incredible art.
I like that one too.
So badass. Brass gauntlets with like fire gems on it or something. Just looks so cool. So these are really interesting. It's an 11th level item. +2 striking spiked gauntlets, just base. That's already pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, there's no activation here. It's a passive ability. A creature you grab or restrain while wearing the gauntlets must succeed at a DC 26 fortitude save or take 2d6 persistent fire damage and be sickened 1 from the pain. It's temporarily immune from being sickened or from scalding gauntlets for 1 hour.
That's cool.
The sickened condition is strong.
It's strong and it's something I would associate with like water or earth or something, but like fire.
What's also important here is the fact that you get the fact that you get this buff for free as far as action economy goes is really important. This takes a class or a character that's already grappling all the time as part of their build and elevates them. All of a sudden, they're just always dropping this persistent fire damage and random sicken condition all the time. I mean, at 11th level, DC 26 isn't actually that big of a deal. You know what I mean? But it's still significant.
Sure.
Like you're still probably going to be failing it a quarter of the time. So a quarter of the time when you're already doing the thing you're doing, your opponent is taking persistent fire damage and sometimes getting sick. Second one is powerful.
It is.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
So
I hate it as a GM.
I know it's because I love Stinking Cloud and I use it all the time. So yeah, those are my items for fire. They're just 2 really, really great shout outs. There's other great items in fire. I didn't want to just like wax
Fire's got some
about
cool
fire.
stuff for sure, like item wise.
It really does. So yeah, moving on to
Metallica. I would like to interest you in this cane I have here.
This thing is cool.
Yeah, so it's called the Silver Snake Cane. It's item 6, price 230 gold pieces. It's uncommon. It's magical. It's metal. Surprise, surprise. You hold it in one hand. The shimmery metal cane is both an assistive device and a popular companion for many Zuhras. We won't go into that yet. The cane's possessor can spend 1 minute feeding the cane an elixir or a dose of ingested or injury poison to fill its venom sac. The cane stores only 1 such alchemical item at a time, and it expels the alchemical item when either 24 hours have passed or is fed a new alchemical item. You get 1 action with it to activate it, concentrate, polymorph. Effect. The Silver Snake Cane becomes a +1 striking silver sword cane for 10 minutes. If the cane holds a dose of poison with the injury trait, That poison's automatically applied to the weapon. If the poison hasn't been expended by the time the cane turns back to normal, it remains stored in the cane. You can dismiss it. You can also activate the Silver Snake Serum. I mean, this goes on, you guys. This item is
pretty solid.
It's long. You've got options, and you don't have to wait till your 18th level to get the damn thing. So activate Silver Snake Serum. Requirements. The Silver Snake Cane holds a dose of an alchemical item. Frequency once a day. Silver Snake Cane bites a willing target of your choice within your reach, dealing 1 piercing damage and injecting the alchemical item. The item's expended. If it was an elixir or ingested poison, the target is affected as though it consumed the item. And if that wasn't enough, you get a third thing you can do with this cane. It's called True Silver Snake. The prerequisite is you are a Zuhra. Again, we'll get into that in the GM episode. The cane transforms into a giant viper made of silver. For all you Jafar fans out there, that's where this came from. All of its strikes are silver. It acts independently, but obeys you. You can dismiss this activation. This is basically a sword cane. Yeah. For you investigators out there who like sword canes, if you like cosmopolitan adventures where you go to the policeman's ball, which we have coming up, just basically how to smuggle in a weapon into a place where they say no weapons. Keep your swords, weapons, and bows at the door. But I have this cane. It's an assistive device. Okay, you can come in. Everybody else has to leave their shit at the door. And then you bust out. You can put healing elixirs in this thing. You put poison elixirs in this thing. You can put confusion elixirs in this thing. It's like whatever you have that goes into the beaker, you can shove into this cane.
And what I love about it is it's only 6th level.
Yeah. It's not something you have to wait forever and build towards and build towards. One of the things I hate about books like all the ones we all buy is so many of the uber cool things, they're just so late in level progression. Nobody ever sees them. So early to mid-level games are where I live.
I think it's where most players live. I think so done surveys before and seen that most games end at like 14th, 15th level.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
We've mentioned before, we're completely in love with the elemental plane of metal and the spells, the NPCs, the items, just all of it. That's the one as a player that rises above. Because as a player, I've got this thing that's an item. It's a weapon. It's a miniature heal bot. It's a sneaky little bit of thing. It's an aggro bit of a thing.
It has all this versatility.
It checks so many boxes in my, how am I going to use this one item on my character sheet in this particular instance? It's not a one-trick pony by any, it's a 3-trick pony.
3-trick pony. 3-trick snake pony.
I'm super keen on that. I've mentioned before, anytime I can get one item that does 2 to 3 things, fuck your balance. I want it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked about it on the previous episode. I'm going to talk about
another
it
repeat.
now.
What do you got?
Rust Cloud. Let's go. Well, I love clouds. Clouds are powerful. Denying vision is incredibly powerful. Flat chances to miss things, incredibly powerful. Oh, and it does 5d10 damage as a 4th level spell. So Rust Cloud, page 145. 3 actions, 4th level spell, range of 120 feet, 20 foot radius burst, creates a cloud, basic fortitude to save, duration 1 minute. This is just a 5th level spell, effectively, in a 4th level spell slot. It's power. It's the kill.
Is that an error that's going to be errated, or is that just a thing that they're doing now?
If it is, it's just going to become a bad cloud spell. But until then, it's a good cloud spell. Okay. Yeah, the cloud spell I'm thinking of is Killer Cloud, or what's that cloud? That famous one, the Death Cloud,
Phantasmal Killer.
No,
Stinking Cloud.
It's the
Cloud Kill.
Cloud Kill. Yeah. So Cloud Kill is a 5th level spell. It does. Thanks. It does nearly the exact same amount of damage, but 1 spell level higher. It's really good. People invest in these stocks now before they go away.
Yep, they will split soon.
They might. Who knows? In addition to doing that damage and being cool like that, you imagine like razor blade pieces of dust particles floating in the air.
I'd rather not, but tell me more.
Hurting people, that's cool. In addition,
pain is good.
Any metal creatures are in the area and getting affected by it, the cloud grows because it's instantly rusting away their metal bodies.
Oh, where the elemental plane of Earth meets up with Nidal. Oh, that would be wicked.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, because the Nidalese are all about keeping their tools and metallic implements clean and pristine and usable. But this stuff we're talking about with the Earth element has more of like a decay.
Metal element.
Metal. Yeah. Oh, sorry, metal. Yeah. The decay, the rust, and that's
it's a great
combo.
That's a
one-off.
It is. It really is. It really is. Or like an enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing.
For sure.
Yeah. So after that, I have
More metal.
Wow, that's a long paragraph I wrote about this one thing.
I noticed that when you were doing it. Are you going to go word for word on that or summarize it?
No, that's just about Rust Cloud, I think.
Okay.
Conductive Weapon, page 142. Conductive Weapon. Oh yeah, this is just a nice little treat. It's a first level spell, 2 actions to cast, Arcane Primal, ranged touch, targets 1 metal weapon. It makes it do. Basically it turns any metal weapon into a +1 shocking weapon, which is just good, kind of on its own as a first level spell. +1
adventures.
Yeah, but
that
like
sounds delicious.
It's a level 1 spell.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's
super
in the same vein as magic weapon. But if you're attacking someone that's metal or wearing metal armor, the shocking rune does 1d12 damage.
Yeah.
That is busted.
Yeah, there's a lot of metal armor out there.
There's a lot of metal armor out there. That's what I'm trying to get.
I would imagine that to be like on the ban list for certain cities.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, it's a powerful spell that is really, really accessible. So,
shouldn't that be a thing? Like in high fantasy settings, every city of a certain size should have a list of banned spells that you're not allowed to cast within the city limits.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty interesting idea. It reminds me a lot of Dark Sun and stuff, how they had like magic people going over and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. They had like
yes.
magic. They had like magic Gestapo, effectively, like making people for not casting.
Yeah.
And I stole that idea for one of my custom campaigns, basically, that has a very similar world building premise as Dark Sun.
Yeah, there's an old TTRPG way back in the 80s. I think it was called Teenagers from Outer Space. And cool. When you actually open it up, it says GM rule number 1, steal shamelessly. So you're in good company.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much it for
metal?
The metal.
You blow through your items and your spells and...
Oh, wait, no, never mind. I'm done.
Arcane tchotchkes.
Metal Domain.
Metal Domain.
Metal Domain.
We're talking about...
So Metal Domain's first focus spell is the level 1 touch. Make a metal. Make a metal weapon.
Metal
deal 1d4 more slashing damage until the start of your next turn. That's kind of mediocre. It's just kind of is what it is. It's a cool little buff. If you have focus spells, burn them. That's fine at low levels. But repel metal. Now this is serious business. So,
yep.
4th level focus spell, repel metal, is a reaction. What you do is you basically give one of your friends a +2 circumstance, not status, circumstance bonus to a C against a triggering attack. If the attack then misses, you redirect the strike back at the attacker, who compares the attack roll to their own AC. Then they become immune for 10 minutes. This is like Retributive Strike, but for anyone who can get access to 4th level domain spells, which in my opinion is incredibly powerful, because Retributive Strike is one of the best reactions in the game, period, hands down. So the fact that a cleric or a druid or anyone else who can get access to this metal domain can wield this powerful reactive ability is just, it's so good.
It makes sense why it's an uncommon spell too.
Exactly. I mean, it's a domain, right? The metal domain, anything coming out of the metal plane of existence has to be uncommon because it's so new and so rare. So yeah. Powerful option there.
Keep an eye on your tags, you guys.
Absolutely.
There's always questions when we look at new material, new spells, new items, new weapons, sort of like, well, what happens? Well, doesn't this seem a little too overtuned? Your answer is often going to be found in your tags. If you see something with a big blue rare tag on it, you just answered that.
So I think we've talked about this in previous editions, but from what I've seen of the design space, generally speaking, and I want to talk about focus spells being siloed from regular spells as well as far as power scaling goes.
Sure.
But generally speaking, uncommon and common are the same, except in power, except for uncommon generally has a nation or a location tied to the origin of the ability, but it's not any more powerful, generally speaking, for being rare in that way. Rarer than common. Rare, however, is more powerful, period. They are designed specifically to be a cut above anything else that does not have the rare tag. So that is a bump in power. That is a significant power increase. So with that out of the way, that's just my general understanding of the system. I've read a lot of this. I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on the system, but who knows?
I'm catching up.
Focus spells, from what I can see, are balanced very differently from all other spells. So all spells at each spell level are effectively balanced against each other. They're in their own silo of balance, if you will. So a first level spell is going to deal about the same damage as any other first level spell. A fourth level spell should do the same amount of damage as every other fourth level spell. But focus spells are treated very differently. They often are siloed to the class when it comes to power balance.
Sure.
A great example of this is the Tempest Druid. It has a 1d12 focus spell, Blast of Electricity. That also has a debuff, which is stupid powerful for a first level focus spell. Every other focus spell, especially the domain ones from clerics, are way less powerful. So we see these huge imbalances in power and focus spells because they are exactly what you called out earlier. They really act like supernatural abilities from Pathfinder 1st Edition. So the designers can design them specifically for the play experience and the balance surrounding the rest of the class, rather than any caster
it's
getting
relative
a
to the
hold
class
of it.
rather than
Exactly. So if you have a class there's a cool strong class ability like casting spells, then the cleric, then you can make their focus spells a little less powerful because they already have options with a bunch of spells. But if you have a marshal like the paladin, like the champion. Oh my God. If you have a marshal like the champion, their focus spells can be lay on hands, which is bonkers good for a first level focus spell or for a first level ability in general. Bonkers good is maybe an overstatement, but it's pretty freaking good. So anyway, that's my little tirade on the power balance and how it all kind of fits in together, at least from my perspective of the game. I've got one more metal thing to talk about.
All right, let's do it.
Sweet. You heard all these spells that I really love from the metal domain. Well, guess what? I'm a big fan of staffs. And the staff of metal, the math of Stettel, is pretty good. So the base level 6 staff. So if you don't know this, most staffs are level 6 items. Some are level 8 items. And then they have 2 more tiers after them. They have a second tier, which introduces a lot more spells you can cast from it. And that third tier, which introduces even more spells you can cast from it. The first tier is cantrip first and second level spells. At 10th level, in this case, from 6th level to 10th level, you get 3rd level and 4th level spells. And then, of course, at 14th level, you get 5th and 6th level spells. Rust Cloud is one of the spells that are available to the staff. But also Noxious Metals, which is also an AoE. It's not a cloud, but it's a big AoE that deals some pretty significant damage and has some cool debuffs. As well as a spell that I didn't talk about before because I already picked too many metal things, but it's called Mercurial Stride. It basically allows you to move through people. No, you don't have to take any acrobatics.
You turn into the T-1000 from Terminator.
Exactly.
And then you just blow through people and you affect them.
And you deal debuffs to anyone you pass through. Yeah. Which is just super cool.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't name that as one of them.
So 3 out of 4 options in the staff at the second level, at the greater tier, are just amazing spells. Yep. So to me, in my experience, staffs have always kind of been hit or miss. It's kind of like there's this one spell on the staff you really want to cast. You buy the staff just to cast that spell as ad nauseum. And the other ones will come in handy sometimes. But this one has a bunch of bangers. I didn't even talk about the minor spells I can cast, which are also good.
Yeah, stats are sort of like a standard operating procedure for wizards. You got your staff of fire, staff of metal, staff of everything.
They gave it a picture.
Yeah.
Which I love. You know what I mean?
That's a waste of space.
Yeah. Oh, stop. It's a cool stick.
It is. They could have put something else in there.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe if it was made out of bamboo for the wood section, that would
that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, that's metal. Yeah. That's metal. Moving on to water.
Water. All right. So I was going to say this for the GM video, but I'm going to go ahead and bring this up now because I just think it's cool as a player to have access to this thing. So Rage of Elements has 6 different elemental sections. All of those sections has a new concept that they introduce with the exception of Earth. So for water, it's these things called figureheads.
Yes.
Figureheads. You put them on the front or the back of your ship. I don't see why you can't put it on the front or the back of an ox cart.
It says that in the book.
It does. Okay, then I skipped that part. Or on the, your mask, your scary mask that you do for intimidation checks or whatever. Put
it says it under the figureheads like section. That's the sidebar.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then reading fail for Erik.
No,
I'm still excited about it.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of these, and this is under the water items section in page 176 and onward. So there's a bunch of things you can get in the elemental plane of water. One of them is different kinds of figureheads, and figurehead is a new tag that they're using, so they should be easy to find on the webs. This one in particular I like is called the Kraken Figurehead.
Yes,
they even have a picture of it. Water item 10 plus. Usage: attach it to a ship's bow. Forget that part. I want to put it on the front of my horse's helmet. It's a knot of tentacles that make up the body of this figurehead. It's always slightly slimy and sticky to the touch, like some people I know. Superstitious sailors tend to avoid ships with this figurehead on the bow, claiming it's bad luck to flaunt a kraken's image while at sea. Somebody should talk to George Martin about this. Activate. Lash out. 2 actions. Aura. Concentrate. Frequency. Once per hour. Here's the effect. You do the Kraken figurehead. You do a 2-action thing to make this effect. The effigy causes spectral tentacles to erupt from the ship's hull. The tentacles lash out in an emanation with a distance equal to the ship's length. Remains active for 10 minutes. Creatures in the aura in the same body of water as a ship take a -2 circumstance penalty to athletics checks to swim as the writhing tentacles lash out in all directions. How cool would this have been in our Shitty Dwarves campaign on the Clunker Junker?
God, yes.
Driving around in the desert with a dune buggy and one of these hanging on the front or back.
Random fucking kraken.
Like a scorpion's tail or something like that. Just thematic and make it appropriate. Doesn't have to be in sea.
It'd be better if it was out of context. A desert and you have a kraken idol at the front that's slimy and you're like, how the fuck did that get there?
Yeah, that can only enhance your reputation amongst the nomads out there. A second thing you can do, because I like items that do multiple things. I hate a one-trick pony. Grab them. Clever name, I think. They even put an exclamation point.
They did.
It's a 1-action attack, concentrate. Requirements: the ship's spectral tentacles are activated. So you activate the tentacles for 2 actions, and then you can grab them for a 3rd action. The tentacles grab an enemy vessel in the aura. Attempt a piloting check. Vehicle rules. Against the target vessel's AC. On a success, the tentacles grab hold and tether the 2 vessels together. While tethered, the ship can't move further away from each other. Creatures aboard the enemy vessel receive -2 circumstance penalty on all piloting checks. And creatures attempting to board the enemy vessel gain a +2 circumstance bonus to any check required to do so. You can use this activation while the tentacles are already latched onto another ship. The tentacles instead pull that ship towards yours a distance up to half your ship's swim speed with the success, or up to your ship's full swim speed with the critical success. The pilot of the ship can attempt a DC 27 piloting check to break free as a single action. Vehicle rules with grappling.
Dude, it's wild.
I've been waiting for this day. I'm ready to play Twisted Metal now, you guys.
It's the coolest fucking boarding actions you could ever imagine.
These
you
are
ram the ship with your tentacle monster that grabs onto it, and then your pirates swing aboard the other ship and take it over. Come on.
These are sci-fi ideas. These are cyberpunk ideas. These are not high fantasy ideas. And here we are. We have our vehicles, our technological gadgets that can do these great spectral things. This doesn't feel like Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition.
No,
doesn't even feel like 3.5. Doesn't feel like 4 to me. It sure as hell doesn't feel like 5th edition. They're making really good use of their design space.
Yeah.
And Golarion is becoming a thing that was an image of something else. And as we get further and further into orc territory, we're finding that it's becoming its own thing. And it's becoming broader and wider, not narrower. That is our orc license insignia right
My motto. I got to put some basing on it then. Yeah, maybe improve the face a little.
Yeah, and I think this might be the other license before. I don't know who that is. I might have offended a whole swath of people.
Nah, just a bunch of weaves. It's okay.
Figureheads. The elemental plane of water have introduced figureheads into Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Yeah.
The elemental plane of wood has their own thing they introduce. Fire, everything but earth for some reason.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that when we do the DM episode.
Totally.
My water item, not a spell, Kraken figurehead. I want it. Put it on your pony. I want you to put it on your giant, your gargantuan ape. If you have a building that moves, put it on that. Start affixing, make vehicles out of everything and put figureheads on them and then make competitions and put them in the Aurorium.
Yes.
There's monster truck rallies need to have this.
Can you imagine putting on a planar skiff?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Because Spelljammer, you know, with the tentacles on the ships.
Exactly. That's
This is
I
I wouldn't say any of this is original.
Yeah.
But it's the accruing of old ideas and putting them
Mm-hmm.
together in new and interesting ways, and then codifying them into the rule set of a system that doesn't break at high levels.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing we just don't have, or at least we didn't until literally Rage of Elements popped up, and a little bit of it in Guns and Gears, which is getting expanded upon now. I'm super excited, and that's why I picked that one for my water choice.
Sweet.
Kraken Figurehead.
Well, I'm going to pick something that's a little busted again.
A little busted?
A little busted, I think.
You like the busted shit?
I do like the busted
What is your
shit.
overpowered item for all of Robert's characters going to be?
It's a spell. It's a spell. It's Grasp of the Deep, page 173. That's a 4th level spell. It's got 2 actions to cast, Arcane and Primal, 60-foot range, target 1 creature, will save, duration is 1 minute. Now, this is, when I first read this, I thought there was a typo with the way they described it.
Oh, I remember this, yeah.
What happens is you basically suffocate someone with the weight of the deep itself, dealing 6d6 bludgeoning damage and other effects depending on the will saving throw. Mm-hmm. So what's confusing about this, and I'm not going to misspeak here. This is literally what the text says.
Verbatim, as the kids say.
Verbatim. The creature is unaffected for critical success. Okay, so that's pretty typical, right?
So far.
On a success, the creature takes half damage, half of 66.
Sure.
That's totally normal. And here's where things go awry. Failure. The target takes half damage. Wait a minute. That's not how spells work. And feels as though it's being crushed. The target becomes grabbed and takes 66 bludgeoning damage. Wait, again? It can attempt to escape with an escape DC equal to your spell's DC. So let's get this straight. On a failure, they take 3d6, which is half of 66, and then they take 66. So they take 1.5 times on a. So typically on a failure of a spell like this,
that's a brutal spell.
You would take full damage.
Mm-hmm.
Full damage, the total amount of damage. On this spell, you take 1.5 times that damage. And then, if you get a critical failure, it says as failure, but the target takes double damage.
That feels wrong.
It does. So you're taking 12d6 bludgeoning plus 66 bludgeoning, 18d6 bludgeoning on a critical failure. If I'm reading this correctly, maybe the wording was just a little off, but I could see a very strong argument for rules as written. You take as failure, but takes double damage. Either way, I mean, when they're referring to the amount of damage taken, which makes me suggest syntactically, based on the syntax, that you no longer take half damage. The first sentence of the paragraph here, you take double damage. So basically, replace that sentence with you take double damage, and then you take 66 additional damage. 12
double
plus,
damage instead of half damage.
Exactly. And then you take 66 damage.
That's how I'm reading that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and
that seems
you're
brutal for a 4th level spell.
And you're grabbed.
That's huge.
So you think it can't get any better.
It's also a concentrate. Okay.
But it gets better.
Tell me more.
You could target up to 5 creatures when you heightened it to 6th level.
Yep.
5 creatures.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, anybody who's played La Sombra in the World of Darkness knows exactly where they got this inspiration.
Yeah. So I was thinking, man, I could build an entire party around this one spell because I could just have 3 characters who focus on will debuffing and then 1 character who delivers the final blow with Grasp of the Deep.
Grasp of deep. Deep grasp.
Yeah. So
Deeper
that's my water spell. I've got one more thing on my list and then I'm done, Eric.
Oh, really? Okay, so I shouldn't take a nap just yet?
No. That's it.
I'm going to skip over to wood here and listen to your one more water thing.
Oh, no, I have no more water.
Oh, no more water.
I just have a wood.
Moving on to wood. Where is wood? Page 199 or thereabouts? Green. Give me green, you guys. You color code these books. I love you for that.
Yes. So 196. Oh, 199 for yours?
No,
Awesome.
I'm just, that's the last number. I wrote
Gotcha.
down here. So I've got something called Arms of Nature. Help me find this damn thing.
Yeah, of Nature it's 199. It's the focus spell.
Oh, it's almost like I just said that and ignored myself.
Yeah.
Focus spell.
Bottom right-hand corner.
God damn it.
Bottom right-hand corner. Right here, Eric.
Arms of Nature. Oh, do you suppose it's where it says Arms of Nature?
Yep.
Okay.
Wood domain.
Wood domain. So wood is a new domain along with metal. Brand new stuff. It's been hidden away in the back of the multiverse for eons, and now it's back, just like that guy from Independence Day before he flew up into the ship and saved Earth. So think of that as I describe Arms of Nature. You command the indomitable power of wood. It's a focus spell. 1, as I've said. Uncommon tag. Concentrate, focus, manipulate, wood. Range, touched. Targets. 1 wooden object or plant of at least 4 bulk.
It's 2 actions.
It's a 2-action spell, correct. Yes. Blah, blah, blah. Duration's a minute. All wood, dead or alive, is your armory. When you cast a spell, you draw forth a +1 weapon of your choice from the target. The weapon must be 2 bulk or less. This weapon is of the same material as the target. Heightened at 3rd, the weapon becomes a +1 striking weapon. Heightened at 5th level, 5th spell level, the weapon is a +2 striking weapon. Heightened 7th, the weapon is a +3 greater striking weapon.
Mm-hmm.
You can walk around town naked.
Yep.
And as long as you keep something wooden nearby, no jokes, you will, you're always armed. And it's a utilitarian thing. Sure. Yep. That's great. But, it's just thematically amazing. I mean, we're so used to seeing artwork of these high fantasy, high powered characters. Even all the artwork in these games, everybody is bristling like a porcupine, full of weapons and gadgets and, doohickeys everywhere. There's just millions of dollars worth of crap all over all these art characters, except maybe a monk here and there.
Yep.
But you could be like Kane from Kung Fu. I am Kane. I will help you. With what? You're barefoot and you're wearing your bathrobe. How are you going to help me?
Yeah.
I touch things and make weapons.
Absolutely.
So, if there's an axe handle laying around, just grab that and you've got a longsword.
Yeah, don't use the axe. Use the handle.
Use the handle, right?
Yeah. I have like a 2x4 sitting right there across from us, next to an axe.
Yeah, and it's closer to me, so when I cast a spell, I win.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, this seems like a really cool thing to have from a GM perspective, because you build scenes around a spell like this. Yeah. You build NPCs around spells like this. A sequence of events. If I steal the weapons from players, all of a sudden they feel like they're without agency, right? Ooh, bad GM, you stole all my weapons. Well, I know you had the spell. You're not without. Just look at your fucking character sheet and remember what you have. Don't yell at me for taking away your toys when this is part of the story. You have access to other toys.
All right, guys, let's just take a second and look over our character sheets.
Right.
Maybe you could figure something out.
Character agency conversations always piss me off because I think people are rather myopic when they enter them, but that's a whole nother discussion. I think when it serves the needs of the story, it's absolutely legit.
Yeah.
And it's just a question of a fair, as far as we've all discussed during session 0.
Yeah.
Those are the parameters for this sort of thing. So Wood Domain, Arms of Nature, 2-action focus spell at 1st level. A first level character running around. Bloop. I've got a weapon.
Bloop. So what's interesting about that is at 1st level, most characters that get access to a focus spells don't have very good martial weapon proficiency.
Sure.
But I will say that at 1st level, their to hit bonus is just about as good as everyone else's. So at 1st level and up to like 5th level, they're totally fine. But then when marshals get their expert bonuses and their attacks, it begins to get less cool. But I still think it's super cool and like very thematically cool.
Right.
You know
the duration's a minute.
Yeah.
You can hand this to anybody in your party
do it
again,
and
do it again, and do it again, and do it again.
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
This is a super versatile spell, and only one person needs it, and everybody's armed.
Armory out of a tree.
Right.
Yeah, handed it to people.
So this is a 2-action thing, a minute.
Yep. That's 1 action to create it, 1 action to hand it to someone.
You can arm 6 individuals. No, focus points. So
3 individuals.
I'd have to math that out, but
it's maximum 3 individuals because your focus pool's.
Yeah, and when remaster comes around, that's going to be even better. But
they're still going to have the 3. They're still going to have 3 focus point pool maximum.
But you get them quicker in the remaster.
You just get all of them after 10 minutes. That's it. That's the only difference.
What was it before?
If you spent 1, you get 1 back. But once you spend 2, you still only get 1 back. So now the next time you go to fight. How long does it take
to get 3 currently before remastered?
You have to sleep a whole night, I think.
Okay, yeah. So it's going to be a lot sexier and remastered.
Yeah, a little bit more sexy. But within the confines of 1 combat is what I'm trying to say. You can only ever make 3.
Sure. Yeah. That's definitely the board game read on that one.
Yeah. But yeah. So my last one is Flourishing Fauna. 2 action, arcane, primal, first level spell. This is on page 196, bottom left-hand corner of the book. This is another one of those super versatile spells.
Did you say Flourishing Flora?
Flourishing Flora, yeah.
Nice. Okay, got it.
So basically, it's a 5-foot burst, 30-foot range, and a reflex save. I like small bursts.
Yes.
Big bursts are hard to control, and you often don't get that many people in them because you don't want to get your friends in them.
Sure.
But a 5-foot burst is small enough to kind of strategically put in a corner or within 2 or 3 people and bang them and then not get any of your friends.
It's a shame it's only 30 feet for the range. There.
It is. But it's a spell, so you can just use the God,
you got to get up close and personal to use that effectively.
You can use the meta magic feat reach spell and add another 30 feet to it. So it's not that bad. You deal 2d4 damage flat, and then you pick one of 4 like plant types: cacti, flowers, fruits, and roots. That almost rhymes. The cacti does persistent bleed damage and piercing damage. The flowers deal poison damage and dazzle for 2 rounds on a critical failure.
That is too cool.
Bludgeoning damage for fruits and clumsy 1 for 2 rounds on a critical failure. And then roots, bludgeoning damage, and affected creatures fall prone on a critical failure. So it's a neat little targeted blast spell that I think is just really versatile and kind of like useful.
4 flavors of damage for a first level spell.
Exactly. So when it comes to targeting weaknesses or bypassing resistances, that's where this thing shines, because it's like, oh yeah, you're a swarm and you're resistant to all this physical damage.
Sure.
Poison.
Yeah.
Done.
God, there's nothing more infuriating to me as a player when I'm playing a spellcaster to just look at a certain monster and as a player who's read the monster books, be like, motherfucker, you're immune to 3/4 of everything I have to throw at you.
Yeah, the medicine.
But when you start having like multi-purpose spells, it's like, okay, all right, so at least now I can participate.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my last pick for player options. If there's a bunch of other great options in this book for players, don't get me wrong, but you guys don't want me to just like read the whole book to you. Unless you do, let me know in the comments. I might just do that one day.
Can you do that in a smoking jacket?
I can. Yeah. With the hat,
Hugh Hefner smoking jacket with the hat.
So Eric, show me the rest of your picks.
Okay, so I'm gonna do one more, and then I'm ready to call it a day.
Sweet.
I've mentioned before that I'm a super fan of the churn of elements section in here. This is where 2 different elements kind of combine. You get hybrid element spells and abilities and whatnot. And the Elemental Servitor is my pick for this one. It's a ritual, and I'm
go on.
That's a conversation stopper right there.
Go on.
I've never done shrooms, but no, I'm gonna leave that joke right where it is. So, hybrid element rituals, Elemental Servitor. I tried not to be cheesy with my character picks and say, for each element, I'm just gonna summon a genie from that element, and they're gonna do things, and it's gonna be fun because I like to interact with things from a roleplay perspective. But Elemental Servitors, being able to summon the guy who speaks for the guy.
Yeah.
That's interesting territory for me.
Absolutely.
Because while this person I've summoned is the mouthpiece of the person, it's not the person themselves. So it's almost like, I don't know, walking into like a corporation and getting to the front desk and they're like, do you have an appointment? Yeah, I've got an appointment. I'm here to talk to Bob. It's like, all right, go into the waiting room. And Bob doesn't show up. Instead, Jim shows up and Jim's like, so I hear you want to talk to Bob. What do you got on your mind? Maybe I can help. No, I'm really here to talk. talk to me. What do you need? There are so many interesting, juicy little RP moments that can help to subvert the player's expectations in the moment of casting the spell. Because this is a level 5 ritual spell that I took with my resources in my character building shenanigans, and I want to use it. So my GM needs to do something with that.
Absolutely.
You build stories around spells like this.
Exactly.
And it's a really cool sort of yes and tool between player and GM. So
and it definitely shouldn't be a secret. Like the player should definitely make sure the DM knows full.
Yeah, don't spring this shit on your GM. That would be that would be.
This is an ask for permission kind of
If somebody
spell.
casts this for me, I'd be like, where in 7 fucks did you get the spell?
Exactly.
How did you find it? Where is it? Because I know it's not in my my notes here.
From the corner of this splat book comes...
I got it from Range of Elements. It's uncommon. Oh, it's uncommon. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
But elemental servitor. And of course, you can extrapolate that across all of the elements. If you're playing like an Ymeri focused game and it's all about the elemental plane of fire, that's the one you summon.
Totally.
And it doesn't even have to be like the servitor of that elemental god being. It could be, I don't know, like middle management or something, or lower management. Just make it like a level 3 ritual or something like that and get somebody further down the food chain. You can like build this up and down. It doesn't have to be strictly as written out of the book.
You just got to make it appropriate.
Keep the balance right.
Yeah, make it appropriate for the setting, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, basically.
Sweet. You got anything else, Erik?
Out of this book, as a player, absolutely not, because we're not talking about kineticists.
Awesome. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, goblins.
Yep.
We deeply appreciate it. If you want to join the conversation, jump into the comments or jump into our Discord. The link is in the doobly-doo.
It's so metal.
It's so metal. Seriously, though, we have a bunch of people who talk about their big DMing projects all the time.
Especially D.
Yeah. But a bunch of other people as well. We bounce ideas off each other all the time. I absolutely have a blast talking to
who you are.
People on Discord. I'm also chronically on Discord, so hit me up. Thanks again so much for checking out our podcast.
Yep.
And as always, goblins, keep it weird, goblins. We'll see you next time. Bye.